All right, welcome back. We're going to welcome my friend, Coach. Is it Becker? Or how do you say
It's
your last name?
Beaker, yeah.
Beaker. Okay.
Beaker. Yep.
For some reason, I go straight to Becker, but I know Coach
Yeah.
always said Beaker, and I'm all like, "Are you
Yeah.
sure that's how you say it?" And he goes, "I think I know how to say
Yeah.
it."
That U is silent. The U
Okay,
is silent, but that E is strong. Old German name. I don't know.
love it, love it.
Yeah.
That's why my name's Kaczewski, and I just say Coach Steve. Don't worry about the Polishness.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
But he's the defensive coordinator at Rochester, Titletown, as I call it, Titletown, Rochester. Coach, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Um, let's talk about you for a second because how did you get into coach? I know you went to EIU. I went to EIU too. I think you
Yep.
coached at Charleston for a little bit. Uh,
Yep.
did you always know you wanted to coach? How did that work
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, man. When I was like a sophomore in high school, it was kind of the realization of, well, I'm not going to the
Yep.
NBA or NFL.
Yes.
That moment finally hit, and I was
Yep.
like, all right, well, I'm probably not going to be a player, but I knew I had the mind. I was like, well, I could tell other people how to do it. Guys that
Yeah.
are more talented than me. That's why I started realizing like I've always always had a thing for the strategy of games and competitiveness and stuff like that. And so back when I was a sophomore in high school is when I started realizing, man, I wanted to be a head football coach someday. And so like the kids literally started calling me coach in high school. They're like, okay, coach, because I'm like, hey, you guys need to get in the weight room. And, I was always that guy, the leader of the team, being another guy kind of co-captains, but we were always just on everybody about, trying to be in the weight room and that kind of stuff. And so my nickname just kind of became coach. If they didn't say Beak, it was coach, just kind of poking fun at me and stuff like that. But yeah, then I got to Eastern, and was like debating the whole Rudy walk on thing. And,
Yep.
and I was like, I pulled my hamstring right when I got there. And I'm like, I'm already too slow. So that just slowed me up. I'm like, let's just go into coaching. And so I called Brian Halsey,
Hmm.
and Halsey turned me down my freshman year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I called him. He doesn't know me from
Okay.
anywhere, so it was fair. But I called him and asked if I could volunteer coach, and he didn't know me from anywhere, and he was just like, "Hey, sorry, man, our staff's full." And I was like, "Okay, well, I just want to let you know I'm at Eastern for 4 years, so and I don't really like to take no for an answer. So if you don't mind, I'll give you a call next year." And he was like, okay. And so sophomore year or my freshman year, then I started coaching like that sixth grade elementary basketball there.
Yeah. Yep.
Had Andrew Schick was my center, big boy, and I'd never forget him. But but and then so I just did sixth grade basketball, and I got a hold of Randy Harpster,
Yep.
and Randy got me in coaching, assistant coaching with him at the middle school basketball. And so then the second year, then my sophomore year, I called up Halsey again, and he told me no again.
Oh,
And I was like, oh man, like I don't want to waste these years. I wanted to build up my resume and get some experience.
right.
So I called my old D coordinator back here in Springfield and gave him Halsey's number to call him back and give me a recommendation. And so he called him. He goes, I'll take care of it. This old Italian guy here in Springfield, and
Yeah.
love him to death. And he called Halsey up, and then my phone rang like 5 minutes later, and Halsey was like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize, he's like, you just got a phenomenal recommendation." He goes, "I'd love to have you." And so yeah, the rest is kind of history, man. I got in sophomore year there and was doing freshman O line and linebackers, and I'm a DB guy.
Yes.
I'm getting in, and I knew I wanted to be a head coach, and everybody told me, "Hey, man, if you're ever going to do it, you need to coach every position.
Yep.
You need to learn. You need to learn every, so you at least have a base." And so I was like, you know what, I'll do it. And so yeah, I was O line and linebackers, the freshman team, and then the second year he pulled me up to DBs and running backs for varsity. And so I finished up 2 more years DBs and running backs, and that's when we kind of turned the program around,
Hmm.
and had those good playoff runs. And so then I came back from after I graduated, did middle school basketball with Harpster and the high school thing. That was kind of rough because you're 20 years old,
Yep.
21, and the football playoffs were going on the same time as the middle
Yep.
school basketball season.
Yep.
So I had to have my seventh graders. I ended up getting the head seventh grade job. And so I had to have my seventh graders do the 6 a.m. practices every
Yep.
morning
Yep.
in the gym. And I had to take that shift. And the other coaches were like, oh, that's good with us. We'll take the after school shift, And so I had to do the morning shift every day. And then after college classes, then go back and do our football practices after school. So I was doing double sessions
Yep.
through the playoffs as a college kid. That was a little rough, some of them Saturday mornings.
Oh yes. Oh, I've been there.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I finished up there, and then I came back to Springfield, and I got on at SHG. They had a
Okay. Yep.
DB opening, and so I interviewed for that with Ken Leonard, and he knew me from high school as a player at Lanphier, and so I interviewed with him and ended up getting the DB job. And coached there for 1 year while I was substitute teaching, waiting to get my foot in the door. And then I got on at Lanphier, and they wanted me to come back as defensive backs coach. And I was like, like it's the same spot, but I'm at kind of a more prestigious school. And so they flipped it from DBs to D coordinator. And I was like, man, I'll take that. So I got the promotion to D coordinator back at Lanphier, my alma mater. And I was DC for 3 years, then head coach for 3 years at Lanphier. And at that time, when I started, had no kids. And then throughout those 6 years, started building my family. And Henry was going into kindergarten, who's a senior now. And he was going into kindergarten, and we outgrew our first home. And that's kind of when we started to think and make the move to Rochester. And Ken called me and said, hey, man, why don't you go out there with Derek? And he's like, I got a job for you here. You stay at Lanphier if you want. I got a job for you at Griffin, or you can go out there with Derek. And so I talked to Derek, and his D coordinator position opened up. And so it just kind of really timed out great. We made the move out to Rochester. Henry was going into kindergarten. We had 3 more coming through. And so we kind of made that family move in 2011. And we've been here ever since. Been 2011, same house. Kids are growing up through the school system. And I've been DC from 2011 till present. So,
yeah, it's funny. You and I have a similar thing there in Charleston because I went to Eastern, did the walk-on thing. I walked in. They said, you're too small. I was 6'5", 275. Spoo's like, you're too small.
yeah.
And they're like, you could be a tight end. Tried it. Hated it because I was an offensive tackle. I'm like, this is too much running. I'm not about this running life. I'm not about getting hit. I'd rather hit people.
Yeah.
I was coaching at my high school, so going back and forth, like it's a 40-minute drive to Oakwood. Like it's trying to coach and do all that. My head coach got let go, so I'm in Charleston. Andrew Schick goes, hey, if you want to coach, I know Randy Harpster at the middle school basketball because it was the winter. He goes, you can coach basketball. Talk to Harpster. That's how I got the Coach Steve name, because he could say it, but Randy, when he's going, he couldn't say it when he was going.
Right.
Coach Steve, get over here. And that's how he stuck.
I could just hear him right now, man. Such a great guy.
Oh, phenomenal. Dude. I learned a lot. Like for an 8th grade basketball coach, something like, whatever. I'm like, that's a legendary, like he knows.
100%.
He knows. And I remember after coaching with him, like, why is he not at the high school? And they're like, he loves this.
Yeah.
Loves this.
Yeah.
And it was a funny thing because then I remember reaching out to Halsey too. And Halsey's like, no. It was an email, like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, screw me. And then he was let go, and then Hogan got it. And I was coaching track. So at Charleston, got to middle school, went to the high school, started coaching track.
Yeah.
And how I got the track job was I remember walking into basketball practice. Coach Wood was the athletic director and the head basketball coach. He goes, hey, the assistant track coach just left. It's a stipend. Do you want it? And it's only like $3,000. And I'm a college kid. I'm like, yeah, I would love $3,000.
Yeah. Right.
Well, then Hogan got the job. I I didn't play games. I walked straight to the weight room and I said, "Who's Coach Hogan?" He stands up.
Big
He goes,
boy, yeah.
he's like, "Me." And I'm like, "Can I talk to you for a sec?" I was like, "Oh shit, can I talk to you for a sec?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to coach football. I want to come in here. You got the head job. Here's
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my head coach to call you, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, okay, what do you want to coach? And I said, I'm an offensive guy. I've coached offensive line. That's what I like to do. And he goes, okay. Next, 2 days later, I see him again in the weight room. He goes, hey, come here. He goes, hey, I'm going to bring you on. You're going to volunteer because I got to trust you and earn that. And I was like, I get it.
Sure.
And he goes, this is what you're going to coach. You're going to coach linebackers and you're going to coach running backs. And I said, wait, what? And he goes, if you want to coach and you want to do this, you have to coach different positions you've never done before.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like a little, young, you're like 21 years old and you're like, well,
Yeah.
fuck, like I'm
Yeah.
going to do this or this. Like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
And then he goes, you're going to call defense for JV and help out the varsity defense at the same time. He goes, let's see what you got. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah.
And I hated it at first. And then as it was going on, I realized I was like, wait a minute. Now I understand offenses more now because I realize what the defense
Yep.
is doing. And
Hmm.
he runs, I think you run a 3-4. He loved the 3-4. We were
Yeah.
coming in doing that. And I had to learn that, learn how you do this, learn how you do this. I was coaching linebackers. Then it turned into, okay, now you're going to coach the outside linebackers as well, besides the inside. Um, and the next year, he steps down that next year, and I become OC like the next year.
Yeah.
And it was just weird because he did that. Then the summer, he goes, hey, why don't you call the plays for 7-on-7? He goes, here's my play sheet. And when he handed it to me, everybody looked around and they're like, he never gives up his play sheet. What the hell's going on? And I was like, oh no, we're at Sullivan at 7-on-7. We went to Moral Foresight, went somewhere else, and I'm calling plays. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
we're going to lose and I'm going to be an idiot.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. Then OC the next year at like 21 years old, I'm like, oh boy, or 22 or 23, I can't remember. I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, when I came in with Hogan. Hogan
Yeah.
was he was getting the head freshman job. And so
Yeah.
I was his assistant. And then Halsey pulled Hogan up. I think, trying to remember, because Calandrilla was D coordinator too. But at some point, Hogan took over DC. It might have been the third year, the last year. I think Calandrilla
Yeah.
might have had it for a couple. But I know him and I both got pulled up to varsity after the first year of doing freshman.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Hogan's a great guy, man.
Oh,
He's my buddy.
oh, he was great. Me and him butted heads a lot that first year because again, I was a kid and
Yeah,
I didn't tell him I knew more, but some things, if he said it, I'm like, well, maybe I wouldn't do it that way or whatever. And
yeah. But that's good though. Like it's good for like assistants and young guys that want like you. You have an opinion. Like don't be a yes coach. Don't be a just go with everything that they say. Like we want as head coaches, you want guys to challenge you and to you don't take it personally. It's play devil's advocate and go, well, what if and what about this and maybe try this. This is another way of looking at it and
yeah, but
um,
it was just intimidating because he's like a bodybuilder, so he was
for
really
sure,
big.
right?
So there was times I'm like, I am going to shut up and I'm
Yeah,
going to go over here.
where I get killed.
Yeah, because he's calm, cool, collected, and then when he would get fiery,
Yeah, when he's on, when he means business.
and
Yeah.
then Carl Wolf was like, you don't
Oh,
know
Wolfie.
nothing. He's like, when Hogan was the head coach, I was like, he did get a little fire, and they go, "Oh, you haven't seen anything. You should have seen him in the early 2000s." And I'm like, "Oh, why?" And he goes, That was when he was crazy."
Yeah.
And they said even when he came back in 2011, they're like, "This is still nothing." Like
Yeah.
it was like still nothing for that. And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm not going to talk bad about Charleston, but there was things going on behind the scenes of Charleston that frustrated him too. So sometimes take his
Oh
frustration
yeah.
on everything
Being
else.
there, I know exactly. I know what you're talking about, man.
But then, like
It's
after that season, me and him became close because then we realized like, oh, we're the only two not from Charleston on staff. We're like, we're
yeah,
the only two. We're the only ones that are thinking outside the box, and that's why me and him, even though we might have butted heads a couple times, but it wasn't anything bad. We
sure.
realized we were like, oh, we're the only two that are thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
like what Charleston was, because he got told
Mhm.
all the time, this is not how we do things, and I got told that. Then I
Yeah.
became OC. I'll never forget. I walked through Walmart and people actually said stuff to me, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like we didn't win a game, and they blame me because I'm not from Charleston. And I was like,
Right.
"Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Um, and when Hogan left, he tried to get me to go too. He's like, "Hey, you should leave too." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"The season just started. I'm getting this OC spot."
Yeah.
No. Then the next
Yeah.
year, I remember the next year, he goes, "Hey, I know guys at Rochester. Maybe I can get you on at Rochester. Let's get you moved. I
Yeah.
can get you to more Foresight. I can get you to Mount Zion." And I'm like, "No, I'm the OC." And then we had
I
a
tried to
horrible,
get him to come with me to Rochester for years, and he
oh,
just
I
would
know.
not pull the trigger. There was a couple different times we had openings, and I was like, "Hey, you want to do it, man? Come on, like this is the time." And he'd think about it, and I'd give him a call back, let him have it simmer on it for a couple weeks, and
Yeah.
he just never could pull the trigger, just with his family and other things going on. It just never really timed out quite right. But yeah, I tried to get him to come here.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I said, I was like, well, then after it was all done, he goes, "You should have left." Because
Yeah,
it was a horrible marriage. Like
yeah,
I was done at my last year at Charleston. I just was like done.
yeah,
Resigned from football. I coached tracks. I got along with the head track coach. I'm like, I'm done. Like I can't do this no more.
yeah.
And luckily, my now wife was from the suburbs. She got a job up in the suburbs, so I just pulled the trigger. I was like, screw it. We moved up here in 2018 and never looked back. But it was just funny because when I got the OC job, I got the head seventh grade boys basketball job. So like it was the last 2 weeks of football,
Right.
basketball starts.
It
So
is. That's a double sessions grind, man. And
so of course they were like, "Oh, there's two spots. There's the 6 a.m. or there's the 3:30." And I said, "Well, I have to do the six."
mm-hmm.
Um, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you could have the six being a college, and that's
Yeah,
the worst part when you're coaching in college. You can't live the traditional college life because you're just coaching.
right.
You have to get up early, and they're like, "Wait, you're going to go to weights? We're going to the bar."
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, guys. I got 6 a.m. practice tomorrow. I can't be out late.
Yeah, or I got a game tonight in Taylorville, which is an hour and a half drive from Charleston or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
got to go there, or like, hey, I got a Christmas tournament. I can't do
yeah.
that. Especially when I got to high school basketball. It was like, oh, for sure, I'm not going out. You can't do anything at all.
That I kind of remember, and then like the summer stuff because I'm college kid, so I'm coming home for the summer. Well,
Yeah.
then you have all your contact days, and so I had to go back to Charleston
Hmm.
uh, for the coaching part. Luckily, my stepdad had a big old like Madden Cruiser camper, a big
Yeah.
old 50, and so he would we would camp. I don't remember what the place was called, but I'd get a camp spot, and I basically lived in the camper for like during
Oh,
the 2 week Halsey camp and like some of the summer stuff. I would come back and live there because the dorms weren't open yet and stuff,
yeah.
and so I just stayed there. My mom loaded up the camper with food and stuff, and I just stayed there, and so I was able to be still coach during the summer and be there for all the DB stuff and 7-on-7 all that. So
So that's kind of like a GA thing for college, kind of. You're like, I'm,
yeah, I really was, but it was just for the high school level. But it's what I wanted to do. I loved it. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
I was going
So
to say, like, you really wanted to coach then, because a lot of people probably wouldn't have done that. They've been like, I'm just going to stay home.
yeah, I'll get there when I get there. And I was like, nope, these are the summer is huge for the skill stuff, for the seven on
Yeah.
seven stuff, and being the DB running back coach, I was like, no, I want to be there for all that. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I was committed. I've always been all in on it. And then when I got the head job at Lanphier, then it was like I didn't realize I was young. I was 25, 26
Hmm.
with that job, and there's just so many other things that they don't really tell you about as a
Yeah.
head coach, all the behind the scenes stuff, being man, the psychologist, the uncle,
Yeah.
driving these kids, feeding them on their way home, dropping them off. It just it just became overwhelming, especially as a young head coach, and just looking back on it, like people have asked me, like Lanphier's open again right now, Southeast is open. I'm trying to now, as a more veteran, I know some of the guys that are applying, and I was like, hey, my first question is, do you have your right hand man yet? You know,
Mhm.
do you have your other coordinator? I don't care what you do, O or D or whatever. But if I went back and did it again, I'd have made sure I had two guys before I even apply for a job now. Like, I mean, I'm not going anywhere, but if I did it again,
Mhm.
I'd make sure I have my other coordinator at the varsity level and I'd have my head freshman coach,
Right.
because it's just so important to have somebody good at that younger level to get those kids ready and to keep them in your program and to have fun while still installing your base stuff
Right.
and keep the numbers up and not run kids away. And then you got to have the obviously the opposite side of the ball coordinator that
Mhm.
you can trust, that can do it at a high level, and you trust them to watch film and game plan and all that stuff. And then you have, between the three of you, now you got three guys that can help you handle the behind the scenes stuff that, you know, just becomes overwhelming as a head coach. And so when I stepped down, I'm like, well, it was burning me out because I'd come home and I'd be a zombie. And
Mhm.
my kids were little, and they, you know, they're running up to me, "Daddy," and wanting to give me a hug. And I just, like, I give them a hug, but I'm thinking about the fight that happened at school, or this kid's ineligible. You know,
Yeah.
the teacher's crying to me about this kid did this today, and I'm like, well,
Yep.
discipline in your own classroom, you know, like. But there was
Yeah.
just always so many things going on, and I got to a point where I was just burning out. I'm like, man, I don't like coaching anymore. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I love to do.
Right.
Something's got to change here. And that was when, you know, just kept talking to my wife. And like I said, we were out here on our house anyway. And so I was like, man, I'll come out here to Derek. If I'm not the head coach, I know what a head coach needs. I
Right.
know what I would want in an assistant coach, and I'll be that assistant for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll help him, and I'll do my thing. And then it's so now, like, I went from the original goal of wanting to be a head coach to now I just love being a coordinator.
Yeah.
Really, as I realized, I'm like, well, I don't necessarily have to be the head coach. I just love play calling. I love
Yeah.
scheming and that side of it. And then I just get to go home. Don't have to deal with all that other stuff. You know, like some of
Right.
that's on Derek's plate and not mine. And so I've enjoyed the coordinator role, and man, he's been awesome to me too. I'm basically the head coach of the defense, and you know, he does a great job playing devil's advocate, and we're always on the whiteboard together and stuff. And that first year or two, he was on me more, just to, so I had to earn his trust and
Right.
that kind of thing. But man, as we've been going, he's just like, go do your thing. I trust you, and we'll meet up at the end of the day. Let's talk about it Sunday night and roll in with the next game plan. You know.
I was gonna say, you said that, like, now you're just the head coach of the defense and you don't have to do budgeting. You don't have to talk to the
Yeah.
parents. You don't have to do this. You don't have to, you're not in
No,
the
and the
buildings.
fundraising and all that, like, man, at Lanford, like, just selling the pizza cards and doing
Yeah.
all this, and, you know, going to the state fair and shoveling
Yeah.
poop and, you know, like, everything. It was just so much. And out here, like, we're so blessed. Our football moms, you know,
Mhm.
the community, they do such an awesome job with that stuff for us. I show up to a golf outing the first day of the summer, have some drinks, play around a golf. We make thousands of dollars, and that's our fundraiser. You know, like,
Yeah.
we have one big one, we do some other little ones, but like, we just have a great day, go golfing, and
Mhm.
it's our biggest fundraiser. And so it's those, just stuff like that. Like, if you've been on the other side on how hard it is, and then you come here, there's a reason why our staff hasn't doesn't have a whole lot of overturn, especially at the main positions, because we know how good it is here. Like, we have a family, we've got a great community. You know, they support us. They do so much of that other stuff, and like, really take that off of Derek's plate, because he'll be the first to tell you he's not as organized as he is
Yeah.
offensively and as a head coach. That fundraising stuff, the weight room stuff, like, it's not his thing and it's not my thing. And like,
Yeah.
but we have other people that's what they take pride in, and they do a great job with that. And so everybody has like their roles, and we know it. Like, we just know we're in a great situation, and there's a lot of support and a lot of help in a lot of different areas. And so it's like, we're not going anywhere. Like, it's hard for
Yeah.
us to leave. Like, it's been tempting. We've had some opportunities. We've all had little opportunities. It's like, at the end of the day, you know, it, we all have our families like rooted in here now, and
Right.
Like Coach Clark, JC, his sons were kind of the first ones through, or his oldest son was the first one through. Now me and Nelly have seniors. We both have I have a freshman. He's got an eighth grader. Derek's kids are even younger than that, so they're coming through. So like, and what are we gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna leave Derek hanging,
Yeah.
leave with his boys coming up, like,
Right.
so I don't know. It's a good spot, and we'll see what happens. But I don't see us going anywhere. At least our main guys.
Yeah, that's what Derek, when I had him on here, he told me, he's like, hey, I'm not about because I asked him about culture stuff, and he goes, I'm not about this PowerPoint, the three C's, blah, blah. He goes, I am
Yeah,
unorthodox. He goes, we just come in and coach and do our thing. He goes, I'm not,
yeah,
he straight up, what you said, he told me, he's like, I'm not organized in that stuff at all. He goes,
yeah.
football practice, we're organized as hell. He goes,
Mm,
everything else, he goes, I don't know he goes, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing when it
yeah,
comes to that. And I'm like, well, it's working for you. I mean,
yeah.
obviously it works for everybody.
What I didn't realize, like, because when I was at Lanford, like, man, I had like this contract and rules, and
Yeah.
if you miss a practice, you're gonna do this, and if you do this at school, you have to do this, and like, I thought I had like, oh, okay, well, at least it's all on paper, and like it's structured, and so that way you take the emotion out of it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, so I thought that was a good thing, but then it was like, well, now it's in on paper, so now you have to do it every time. Like, you have to hold them accountable to this contract every single time. And there was like situations where I was like, it's not really the way I meant that
Yeah.
to go down, and and so here it's just, our culture is what it is. We don't have like set ground rules. We just handle each situation as they come up. We deal with it in house. Some things are petty, and we just let them go. And we talk to the kid behind the scenes and say, "Hey, don't do that again." You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
then other things, then we hammer them, whether it's with running, conditioning, or a quarter suspension or something. Like, we do all that, but there's nothing set in stone. There's nothing, and so it's nice because you need to treat each kid. I don't like putting them all into one bucket and say we're treating you all the same.
Right.
I disagree with that. Like, you treat them different. It's not that you have favorites. It's, this kid's built up 3 years of credibility and he screwed up one time.
Hmm.
This kid is screwed up 6 times and still not learning his lesson. You treat them different,
Right.
in terms of what you do with them. So, but that's another nice thing out here is we don't have a whole lot of that. We
Right.
have, you may have one or two little cancers each year, every other year or something. But man, the culture is just built up out here that so much that now it's like the kids take care of it.
Hmm.
They get on, like, the pressure is on, like the seniors are like, hey buddy, you either jump on or jump off,
Right.
like, we don't need you regardless of your talent. The culture has we've got it to a point where, and if we step in, we need to, we will, but a lot of that is handled by the kids as well. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And I asked Derek this, I'll ask you this. Like, now that you guys, because they won right before you got there, I think, right? He won one or two.
Yeah, I was head coach at Lanphier in 2010, and they just moved into the Central State 8. That
Okay.
was the first year in the CS8, so I coached against them, and they won the CS8 their first year in, and then they went on and won that first state championship in 10, and then I moved over in 2011, the second year in the conference. So,
Um, so now that you guys have had this long run, is there
yeah.
a pressure that's put on you when you come in, or is it just more of like, you know what, it's just football. There is no pressure. If we just do what we're supposed to do, it's going to take care of itself. We don't talk about state titles. Because Derek said it, he goes, we don't talk about it. It's just we come
Yeah.
in because you guys are in a tough conference. People don't know that. Like
Yeah.
it's a tough conference. You guys are like the smallest
It's
school.
almost a bigger deal to win conference. I hate
Yeah.
saying that. I mean, state is a huge thing, but winning conference, beating SHG, Chatham, like the top half, it's tough to win conference. And
Yeah.
there's years we've won state and don't win conference.
Yeah.
So yeah, um it's been tough, but like, we don't, like, the expectation is to win a state title every year just because we built it up. And then in terms of pressure, it's like, we just reset each year and just it's the new, all right, hey, this is the new class. Positions are a little bit different. Where are we strong? Where are we weak at?
Right.
Here's our system, but let's tweak our system to fit this group. And so each year the offense is a little bit different, defense is a little bit different. Might look the same to the normal eye, but we change scheme a little bit based on strengths and weaknesses of each group that comes through. And the pressure is just our competitive like we don't care about the outside noise and pressure because I take my job like I want to win and Derek wants to win and like
Yep.
we have like the pressures, it's a good pressure. It's just the
Mhm.
competitive pressure that we want to win and we're going to do what it takes to win and show these kids, scheme wise, work ethic, effort, technique, all those things. It's just ingrained in us. So the pressure outside doesn't really phase us because
Right.
we want to win and we're gonna that pressure just naturally is built in. What's nice is like the kids, they kind of they just know like the expectation. And so when you get like when we start getting to the playoffs and stuff, man, these kids they battle through some things. I mean, physical injuries and
Mhm.
stuff, and they're just like, I don't want to let my teammates down. I don't
Right.
want to be the guy that was the reason why we lost. And so kids, when we get to that point, it's pretty amazing some of the stuff that they play through. And it's like, man, I might be sitting out, or whatever, but they just don't want to let each other down. And that's part of that cultural thing,
Right.
they feel that pressure, but they're used to it. And so it's a good competitive pressure. It's not a bad thing at all.
Um, I guess I'm about trying a little bit. Defensive, like you said, that you change scheme up. Like you're a 3-4 guy, but has there ever been like a big overhaul change, or can you tweak it, or do you still give different looks? Like we can hop into a 4-2-5 look, or
Yeah.
do any of this.
Yeah. So when I came, I was 4-2.
Okay.
And when I came over in 2011, we had like no linemen. That 2010 team was phenomenal,
Yeah.
and they had dudes everywhere, and they all graduated. And Derek basically told me, he goes, "Hey, I don't know if we have four linemen, like period." And so he's like, "You're gonna have to do something with the 3-man front, 3-4, 3-3, whatever." And I'm like, I'm actually not a 3-4 guy. I'm a 3-3. But he
Okay.
was like, "You got to investigate. You got to do something 3-4, three linemen." And I was like, dude, I'm a 4-2 guy. So, so I spent that first off season just really investigating 3-down lineman stuff and ended up getting the 3-3 stack
Okay.
with basically with 5 tech defensive ends.
Hmm.
Because when the stack first came out, they were all 40s, head up,
Yep.
two
Yep.
gap. They were two gap guys. And I'm like, that first year, 2011, I ended up having sophomore defensive ends that were both 160 pounds. One was Matt Swain that was 6'6", 160, so just a rail thin,
Yeah.
tall and lanky, and the other one was like 5'10", 160. And so that was our D line,
They're
and then
not
I
two
had
gapper.
no, they're not two gappers, clearly not two gappers, and so um, I was a 4-2 DN squeeze and spill type thing. And
Yeah.
so then I found this 3-3 stuff, having 5 tech DNs. You could still squeeze and spill out of the 3-3 stack. So I just kind of rolled with that. And now we have a good mix of 3-3, 4-2.
Hmm.
Um, Everything we do, we teach the same. You still have a 6-man box, whether it's 3-3 or 4-2. All the coverage secondary stuff behind it is the same. It fits both packages. So now we have both. What's our personnel this year? Is the third linebacker better than the fourth lineman?
Right.
Or is the fourth lineman better than the third linebacker? And that
Right.
kind of depends on which one we major in for the year. So there's been years we've majored in 4-2 and other years we've majored in 3-3. We use the other one as a supplement and game plan depending on what we need each week and or injuries during games and stuff. Like I've been 3-3 in the middle of a game and that linebacker goes down and the
Yeah.
number 2 backer I'd rather have that number 2 D end out there, that D tackle out there. And so we just immediately go to 4-2 the rest of the game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's definitely given me some flexibility by game plan, by injuries, depth chart, but yeah, 4-2-3-3 is who we are. And then it just kind of depends each year and each week even on what our major is.
Do you think that helps you each year? Because maybe coming into the year, like we don't know what they're going to look like. They might come
Yeah.
in because you obviously have to change each year. You guys sometimes are senior heavy, sometimes you have
Yeah.
some more heavy. Does that help you guys at the beginning of the year? Maybe like, hey, last year they were 3-3, 3-4 look. Then we come to the
Yeah.
first game, they're at a 4-2. And
Yeah.
then they drop at that defensive end and coverage. Like, what the hell are they
Right.
doing?
Right. Yep. It does. Like last year. You're exactly right though. Like we were senior loaded this past year. So we knew going in, we were 3-3. Like
Yeah.
we knew our personnel coming in. Now with them graduating this next season, it's wide open competition again. And they're gonna battle it out during the summer, and we'll find out by the end of the summer. We'll make a decision. We'll teach both. And then at some point we'll let the cards, let the cards play out, and then we'll make a decision on which one we're going to major in. If the 4 linemen are better, then we'll head that direction. And so yeah, week 1, I couldn't tell you right. There's no way I could tell you right now if we're going to be 3-3 or 4-2. So if you're playing us, you definitely have to prepare for both,
Right.
and then kind of go from there. So
Well, because I was the idiot because I always, for some reason, I just kept thinking 3-4. So when we played your JV team or whatever it was in the summer, I was like, guys, they're going to be at 3-4. It's too high. Well, all of a sudden it was 1 high doing this. I was like, well, shit, I was an idiot. I thought it was going to be this. So I had to
yeah,
adjust. And I'm like, but what I love about all you guys and your whole, like, it was your like JV team, but all
yeah,
you and Derek and them were all coaching. You were all together, all working hard.
yeah,
The varsity guys were out there like coaching the kids. And I'm like, I actually told the kids, like, you see what they're doing? Like, that's what we should be doing.
yeah,
Like, it was major respect. And I tried to tell them, our kids were like, well, it's their JV team. I was like, you guys are about to find out. Like,
yeah,
I told Derek that when you guys came 2 years ago to Fenton for that 7-on-7, wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats, like the lineman walking down,
yeah,
kids were like, who is that? And I was like, well, that's Rochester. How do you know? And I was like, that's Rochester. Like,
yeah.
it's
Just
okay.
you just kind of know the look. Yeah,
And I said, I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And they were like, well, where are they from? I'm like, Central Illinois. Like, and they're like, where's that? And like, nobody
right.
knows.
Yeah.
The only people that knew were me and the head
You
coach.
know, the capital of
Yeah,
Illinois, not
yeah,
Chicago.
yeah. Because
Springfield.
our head coach coached at Mattoon for a year. I think it was maybe you went against him. I don't know. I think it was 2009 or 10. He was at Mattoon.
Okay. We never
Uh,
played Mattoon.
oh
I
yeah,
know
that's
it
right.
was like big, like trying to not make sure that we never matched up with them.
Yeah, he lived in Mattoon for a year. He's from by Joliet, and he loves it down there. Like if he could live in a cabin in the woods with the
Yeah.
NFL network and never have anything again.
Yeah.
But his wife makes him live up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but he's
Yeah.
all
Those linemen, that's Nelly's Hoggies, man. Like,
oh,
you take pride in the Hoggies, and they're always characters, and
I loved it.
yeah, they
So I
do a
told
great job.
I told Derek, I'm like, I defend you guys. When you guys came up, I was like, guys, they could win this whole thing just because they all coach together, they play hard, and they're going to be tough. And then you guys came up that, and we had to play you guys. In the back of my mind, like, oh shit, we got to play Rochester. And I'm like, but here we go. And I saw that, and I loved it. It was competition, and just loved it. Even though it's 7-on-7, it wasn't about necessarily winning. Of course, you want to win, but it was like competition. It was like,
Yeah.
and I just saw you weren't even calling it, but you were all over the place. Derek's all over the place. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is why that culture thing has worked. The kids were
Yeah.
doing it too. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and it's just 7-on-7. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like
Yeah.
watch, I'm like, this is amazing.
We just know that like it's practice.
Yeah.
Like this is a practice day. Like this is one of our contact days. So man, we're gonna coach them up hard and teach, and like this is learning time, and we want to and we're testing them. We're hard on them. We're trying to figure out which kids we can coach and yell at hard, which kids
Yeah.
we need to coddle a little bit and be like, man, he can't handle the yelling, but we're learning them during the summer. And like, we really push them hard during those 25 days during the summer because we want to find out what they're made of, because we know the end goal, and it's going to get tough. It's going to be hard, and it's going to get worse than this. So can you handle this, and But yeah, and in terms of the JV thing, we don't have the numbers, so we're sophomore through seniors in
Yeah.
practice, so we coach up. When Derek's got varsity offense, I have the JV defense. Our
Yep.
defensive guys, we're coaching them up. So the good thing is they hear our voices, they hear the terminology for at least those 3 years, and
Yep.
sometimes even 4, depending on what we're doing with our practice structure. But yeah, and then it's kind of a committee on game days. Hey, who can make the game? Because we got stuff going on, and it's like, well, I can make this Monday, you can make the next one.
Yeah.
But if we can make it, we're all there and helping out, and so
Yeah. We do the same thing. Like, I think I talked to you and Derek and some, like, we might be a school of 1,800, 1,900 kids. We look like a Central Illinois team because we rolled in with like 35 varsity kids. Like,
yeah,
we're not a school, even though we have the numbers, quote unquote. We
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
we don't, and we go up against schools that are 4,000 kids. There's a team in our conference that's 8,000 kids because they're 2 high schools.
That's
They,
crazy.
they roll in with 60, 70 kids on their varsity team,
Yeah,
and we're rolling in with 30. And
yeah.
it's like, holy shit. So, good thing for
We're
me,
like
I coach.
45, 50 sophomore through seniors, and then we get 20 to 30 freshmen. So we're in that 80 to 90.
Yep.
95 maybe. It's always under 100. It's probably
Yeah.
high 80s, I would say,
Yeah.
throughout for the whole program.
But we do exactly what you guys did. Like, if it's the first part of practice is varsity offense, then the guys that aren't that are with our defensive coaches, and they're
Yeah,
doing defense. They're hearing it from our D coordinator, they're hearing it from our defensive backs coach, and then we
which
get
is
to
good.
have.
It gives us something to do. I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise, if they take them all, then we're just kind of hanging around, and
Yeah.
we'll help them. Like some days it is like that, but I'm like, well, I'll just go down with the receivers and I'll watch their practice and I'll help out, just give little one-on-one stuff if I see a kid doing something or whatever. Just
Yeah.
not too involved, but just still helping and being around them and talking to them. That's kind of the relationship building time.
Yep.
You
Yep.
go hang out with a kid, tell a story, joke with them.
Yep. Yep.
Building
Um,
that culture any chance you get.
uh, I asked Derek this. I'm asking you this because I know what I was thinking. I forgot when you guys played St. Rita. That was the first time that I think it was might have talked about with you guys of like, oh, you're about to see a Catholic school. You're about to see a real.
Yeah.
And I kind of heard that during the St. Rita time. This year against St. Lawrence, nothing against St. Lawrence. They were a good football team. They got to the state title game, obviously. They're
Mm-hmm.
not the traditional Catholic school up here that we deal with. They're in the city. They do a good job, but it's not the traditional, like, who we battle in the suburbs, because the
Right.
suburb Catholic school stuff has just ramped up.
Yeah.
All I remember hearing is Rochester's about to see a real defense, or about to see a real offense, or about to see tough kids. And I'm sitting there getting mad because I'm like, you guys know there's football south of I-80. You know
Right.
Rochester plays big schools, and then
Right.
you have to play in the playoffs against tough teams.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear any of that? Did you hear it after? And then it was like, what was the thoughts? And I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. No, we hear it all the time. And, the guys up in the Chicago area that like through all these summer 7-on-7s and stuff, some of the main schools, they know,
Yeah.
like their coaches know. They're like, yeah, hey, they could play up here. Like if
Yeah.
we played up there, we would be right in the middle of all these, I mean, we wouldn't win every game, but we would be right there battling for
Yeah.
conference titles with some of those Catholic schools and teams and stuff. But yeah, we're at that level, and some schools get it and some guys don't. And it's like, hey, this is nothing new for us. Like, then there's a reason why we like to travel for 7-on-7s, go up to Chicago, go south, because we want to play good competition. So when we
Right.
get to the state championship games in the semifinals and we run into those big dogs, like, we're able to tell our kids, hey, that kid you played down in Tennessee is bigger, faster, stronger than this kid from Chicago.
Yeah.
And
Right.
or at least the same, you know what I mean? And you played him well and those kinds of things. So we love doing that just to build that competition. So when we get there, it's not a rude awakening. The speed is not, it's not abnormal for us. We're used to that game speed or that size or whatever it is, even though we're smaller, not as fast, but we've played against it. And
Right.
so it's not new to the kids. And so, yeah, but we, in that St. Rita game was pretty cool. I mean, we were luckily that year, we were big up front.
Yeah.
So not every year we wouldn't have been able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, but we were big up front. I had small linebackers. My starting linebackers, I'm 5'7", and my starting linebackers were 5'6". Johnny Neal and Gunny. These are my two middle backers, and they're both 5'6", 160 pounds
Yeah.
in the state championship game. And it was one of our best defenses we've had. But we had big boys up front.
Right.
And so we could hold the line of scrimmage and win that line of scrimmage battle playing up in 5A. And so that really helped us that year in particular, that we just matched up. We were fine. We could handle 5A that year.
Right.
But there's other years where we're just smaller up front, and 5A's wouldn't have been a great matchup for us, but it just timed out okay. And, St. Rita, they're 7A usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they dropped 2 classes down to 5, and we're usually 4A, and we went up a class. So there's really a 3-class difference between us most years. And we met in 5A. You know what I mean? We just met in 5A, but there's a 3-class difference there on any other year. And I remember specifically in the pregame, them chirping. It was like some of their players were chirping and just like saying, "Hey, yeah, you're in big boy football now. This ain't 4A no more." And like, I mean, they were laying it on pretty thick, and I was like, okay, like just wait and see, like
Right.
just be careful, like. And we got on them early, jumped on them early, and just seeing some of the looks of they were stunned.
Mm-hmm.
They were just absolutely in shock in that first quarter. And so we were just able to jump on them early, and then we kind of rolled. Then it was a game, obviously, but we got in control of them early and shocked them. And
Yeah.
it wasn't a shock to us though. Like we knew it would be a tough game, but we were ready for it.
Right.
Physically, we knew what to expect, and playing Griffin every year, like,
Yeah.
I mean, that really prepares us. Griffin and Chatham. Chatham's a 6A. And they always have a ton of kids, big numbers, big kids, athletic kids, and Griffin obviously the same way, and they're extremely well coached. And so when we get to the playoffs, like those teams help expose our weaknesses. I hate playing them every year, but we got to play them, and they help expose our weaknesses. And so we're always like, okay, as we keep moving on, these are the things we need to work on to get better. This is where we're weak at. And so hopefully by the time we get to the playoffs and we're making our run, our weaknesses have become our strengths, or we're finding ways to hide it and those kinds of things.
Yeah. I'm the only Central Illinoisan up here, so I get mad when that happens to you guys, because it's like, I know what happens down there, I know what happens down here, but it's like you guys down there are supposed to respect the Chicago or private schools, but they can't respect anybody south of I-80.
Yeah.
But then they obviously don't do their research, like you just said. Like they don't know that, they don't care. They just see the name. They don't know
Right.
anything about Chatham. Oh, St. Art Griffin's not really a Catholic school because they're in Central Illinois.
Right.
Don't you know who coached them for the past so many years? Like, don't you know
Yeah.
what they were doing? Or like, if Springfield has a good year, when they have good years, they're really good. Or like they'll take people to the brink. Like they just don't look at the research. I'm the guy
Right.
that does. So when I don't know, I'm just a nerd like that. But when they play teams, I want to know what they're about.
Yeah.
So like, but up here we battle the Catholic schools. They come to our youth stuff with their shit on and try to recruit
Right.
kids, and it's a pain because they're all over the place, 40-mile
Yeah.
radius. And so like when you guys beat St. Rita, St. Lawrence, I respect them probably more than St. Rita, but when it happens, I'm the guy cheering. I'm like, look, a public Southern Illinois, Central Illinois team just beat a Catholic school.
Yeah.
Like you said, the multiplier doesn't make sense. Why were they 7A? Now they're 5A. You guys were
Yeah.
5A, one kid. Now
One
this
over. Yeah.
happens.
One
Oh,
student over.
how dumb is that?
Yeah.
Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. We were the smallest in 5A that year. Yeah.
So I'm always the guy. And then I had to mute the state title thing. I couldn't listen to them anymore. They were at the very beginning this year. They were like,
Oh, this guy was terrible.
awful.
The announcer. I mean,
Awful.
I don't hear the game till afterwards. I come back home and watch it. He was such a Catholic homer for them. the whole way through, it was like, and they're so tough and so physical. It's like, give our kids some credit too, man. Like, we're
Yeah.
physical. We had some good hard hits and tackles and blocks in that game. Like, we were just as physical as they were, and it was just way one sided. And I was like, man, this is really bad. So for a neutral, like, I get it. If you're the home team, you're the home commentator. But for a neutral state championship game, and it was the like I don't know, he was not good in terms of being neutral at all.
No, and that's why I didn't know if you guys ever listened to it after. That's why I asked Derek. He goes, "Oh yeah, I watched it after." Derek
Yeah,
was very uh right answered when I asked him. He was like, "Yeah, but I mean, we kind of showed them what we can
yeah,
do." Like he goes, but then when I stopped recording, then he told me what he really thought. But then it was,
yeah,
I'm just like, and even our coaches, they were like, "Did you hear that guy? Like, what the hell was wrong with that guy?"
yeah.
I'm like, he must have went to a Catholic school because
Like, there was a couple plays where I think we got a tackle for a loss or something, and the color commentator, I forget his name, but he goes, "Oh no," and it was like, "Oh
yeah,
no!"
oh
Like, who are
no,
you rooting for here? Like, it just clearly, and then they get a tackle, and he was like, "Oh, that's that Chicago Catholic League physical football there," and it was like, "Oh, okay." And then Henry makes a tackle and cuts that running back, their good running back. The running back gets hurt, and it was a good hard hit, and it was nothing. It was dead silent. Oh, we're not physical. We just kind of got lucky, and it was like, all right, whatever. But yeah, I mean, during the game, hell, we don't know. We're not listening to that, but
no,
but having the game recorded at home and watching it later, people were like texting or calling and telling us like later, like, man, this is really bad. And we're like, oh, it's not that bad. But then when you watch it, it was like, oh man, it was bad. Like, the regular announcer, I think he was fine. He was neutral,
yeah,
but the color guy was awful in terms of, not that he was bad at doing his job, but he was bad in terms of being one sided for sure.
yeah. Well, I also think it's because like anything else in the world with politics and everything else, the Twitter thing was blowing up throughout the whole playoffs
Yeah,
about the Catholic schools versus public and the recruiting. And so I think he was just kind of that guy that was like, oh, it's blown up on Twitter. I'm going to
yeah,
talk
and I
about
think he was an ex-Catholic Chicago coach.
it. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think he had some coaching ties to Chicago and Catholic teams up there, and so obviously, that's where his heart is, and so I get it. I get it if that's where you're from, but yeah, it was for him, like, it wasn't enough, wasn't that much respect coming to this side. And then even when we had the lead and we're winning, it was almost like excuses for them, and or still kind of rooting them on and hoping. And I'm like, wow, like, he took it was almost to the extreme. But it is what it is. It doesn't matter. Like, you listen to our radio guys call the game, and they're clearly one-sided, so I like to I watched the game and turned on our radio guys, our podcast, and just listen to them call the game.
Yeah.
It was a little more pleasant to the ear,
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
them call the game than the neutral guys.
Yeah. Because if that were me, I'd use that as motivation. Like, guys, look what they say about you. But it's like you guys are
Yeah,
past that point, I think, with all the success. Like for us, like we made the playoffs for the first time since 2014 for the school. So like if that happened to us, we would find anything to like
yeah,
motivate. Um, which we did first round. We went to the city first round, which was awesome. We went to Lane Tech.
yeah.
Awesome. I took pictures of it. It's a cool place. We won, and it was the first road playoff game win since 1997 for the
Is
school.
that stadium? Isn't that like a neutral one? Like, multiple
Yeah.
schools use it.
That's what the Chicago Public League does. Like they only have a
Yeah,
few. They had a so
couple areas.
we played Lincoln Park at Lane Tech, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: we walked in, there was so much security. We walked in, even coaches had to open up their bags so they could look in.
Oh wow.
And then the kids, our bus got there because we don't have to take the bus. Like coaches can drive. Besides the head coach and the
Mm,
OC, they take the bus. We could all drive.
mm.
So I text them. I was like, "Hey, you're gonna get searched," and they're like, "Okay." Well, then they had to search the kids' bags, and we're like, if they find something to make them not
Right.
come in, I swear to God.
Yeah.
But they didn't really search. They just opened it up and like, cool. And
Yeah.
then the funniest part was our principals come in. They got wanded as they come in. And we were like, oh, now you know how the kids feel when you wand them.
Yeah. Right. Coming into school every day.
Yeah, I'm like, you had to have the sideline pass things. They'll kick people out if they don't have it. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. There were so many Chicago public security there I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
Then you come to our home playoff game the next round. There was none of that. It was just
Yeah.
like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, whatever.
Just two
But
different, totally different atmospheres.
yeah, it's right by that Kerry Wood baseball field too. So right behind had that Kerry Wood baseball field for the Cubs. It was, I mean, it was just awesome. Like
Yeah.
awesome for the kids. They were like first playoff game since 2014. We come in, we win by 3.
Yeah.
Our best player went down. We still win by 3. Like Lombard East, they were the biggest school in 7A this year. We took them to the brink. It was kind of the same thing. Like they were only beaten. It was 7-7. You could see they were shocked. I used to coach there too, so I know all the coaches. Um, and they were in shock. I think they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like," and I was like, "Guys, we have nothing to lose. Nobody thought we were making the playoffs this year. We have nothing to lose."
Right.
And I was kind of a Conyer stallion because they never go no huddle. When I coach there, never no huddle. And if they do, it's just trying to get you off guard. They
Yeah.
started the game no huddle. He hadn't changed his signal, so I'm yelling to the D coordinator, "It's going left. It's going
Oh,
left."
wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think they figured it out because the next series they were like, back to huddle. Because I think they
Yeah.
could hear me yelling, "It's going left." I don't know what the run
Yeah.
play is, but it's going left.
It's definitely left. Yeah.
So I think
That's
they
what's great about playoffs, though. Like you mentioned, the atmosphere. Like it's so fun to get to the playoffs, and we don't mind an away game. Like much rather if we could have them all at home. I love them,
right.
but it's kind of fun going and being the big bad wolf, and it just going to and seeing these other stadiums and atmospheres and
Yeah.
down in Southern Illinois. I mean, they'll pack it like
Oh yeah.
wherever we're at. These quarterfinal games or semifinals, like everybody down south wants to come see it, see us, root against us. Hope the other team in the South wins, and it just makes for really cool competitive atmospheres. Like, and it's fun for our kids. It's fun for us, fun for the kids to get to experience different places, and that's what's great about the playoffs, man. Just getting to play different teams. You get tired of playing your conference guys every year.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to get you in trouble with this question. I'll just ask it. What
Uh-oh.
was it like coaching against Charleston the 2 years? Because they had 2 good runs there. What
Yeah.
was it like going back against them? Like, because I've heard stories, and I'm not going to say them on here, but I heard a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Uh-oh. The first one was real emotional because it was still kind of fresh. Halsey was still there. Hogan was the D coordinator.
Yeah.
And so I really knew a lot of the guys still, I think. But so yeah, it was emotional, and that was that 11? It might have.
Yeah, I
Was that
think 11
11
you
or
guys,
12? I think.
because I was there. It's believe it or not, I was there watching it. It was 2011 at Charleston. They
Yes.
they were 11-1, I think, at the coming in.
Yeah. And that was when we had those 160-pound DNs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was calling the game from up top, play calling from up there, and they were actually hitting GT counter
Yeah.
and getting some good counter runs in the first half. And I'm like, God, we're missing something. And then right before half, they ran a counter right around the 40, 50-yard line, and it was a counter right in front of me. Like I could just see it all develop. And my defensive ends were going too flat.
Yeah.
Straight down the line of scrimmage, too flat, and both pullers were looping around him and then leading up, and it was a 2-on-1 on my linebacker. They're double teaming my backer, and they were getting big runs. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what we're doing wrong. We're too flat. He wasn't spilling anything.
Right.
He was not making contact. And so we jumped on him at halftime about that. Just that's all. That was the only adjustment like we really needed to make, was just go back to your basics and literally squeeze and actually spill. Be
Right.
physical and wrong arm spill it. And they came out second half, ran a couple counters, squeeze, spill, linebacker scrape, tackle for a loss, or right at the line of scrimmage, and the game, like the momentum of the game. As soon as we just stopped counter, we were
Yeah.
okay with the other stuff. But I vividly remember seeing that one counter, and they had success with it first half. But seeing the one, making the adjustment, the kids came out, executed better second half, and then we kind of ran away with it. But that was just kind of the one scheme thing that I remember. But yeah, the emotions of it, playing against Halsey, obviously really wanting to beat him. No, he's a good mentor for me, and thankful for the time that I had there, and able to grow and develop as a coach. And Halsey, those guys, always respect him. And
Mhm.
man, I really wanted that game, and our kids knew I wanted it. Like, there's some games that the players, we always want to win, but they know whenever there's an emotional attachment to a specific game or series or whatever, and the kids get up for it,
Yep.
they help get up for it for you. And it was
Yep.
pretty cool to see. So yeah, that was fun. I was up there, might have had a couple choice words up in the box. I don't think the Charleston fans, the parents, were too excited about me up there, and I'm like I'm dropping an F-bomb, and I'm like over the top of them, and they're
Yeah.
looking up at me like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh, my bad, sorry about that."
You're looking at him like, like you
Yeah,
said the words
exactly.
like
Like, you
I
didn't
had.
hear me on the sideline, and I know who your head coach is.
Oh,
Don't act like you haven't heard these words before.
like, don't you know who the head coach is?
Yeah, yeah. But no, yeah, that was pretty good. And then we played them at home, and so the emotion was still there, but that first one was
Yeah.
pretty sweet for sure.
Well, then Hogan would have been right below you. You could have just stomped on the box a few times. Like,
Yeah, right.
what are you doing down there?
Yep.
So I remember him telling me he was on the field the first two games, and then they lost to Mount Zion, so he went back to the box. And he
Yeah.
was in the box ever since. You could have just talked shit to him the whole time. Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing
right.
there?
There's some positives and negatives to that. Like, I've called from the top. I really love the view. It's like a chessboard.
Yep.
You can really see everything up there. And so I think I can make faster adjustments up there,
Mhm.
seeing things. But then there's like communication things that I just couldn't get fast enough because I'm not on the sidelines.
Yep. Yep.
Being able to talk to kids right when they come off the field, because we have so many two-way players that I don't even get a chance to talk to like all my skill guys or anything. So being on the sidelines, I like it a little bit better, just because I'm able to, man, I get you for 5 seconds while you're getting a drink of water and jumping right back on the field. And hey, this is what they're doing. This is the adjustment,
Right. Right. Right.
and sometimes I like communicate that through the headset. And like Coach Clark, like he would relay the message, and he might have forgotten one thing,
Mhm.
like, hey, in this coverage, he needs to do this.
Right.
And like he might say, hey, you need to do this. And so the kid thinks he needs to do it every single time. And it's just a communication error where it was like, no, only in this coverage you have to do that. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
everything else, you got to do your other job.
Right.
So little things like that we would just catch, and I'm like, dang, we accident. So
Right.
that's kind of where I like the communication part of being down on the field.
I was the same way. OC for Charleston. It was like the first two games. I was in the box, and I remember loving it because I can see it. And then, but like you said, if I needed the quarterback to hear something, if I needed the O line to hear something, if I needed the running backs to hear something, now I'm trying to say it really quick, make sure it's right. But they put the head thing up and you can't hear what they're saying.
Right.
Then so after that second game, I said, I'm going down to the field so I can just quickly do it myself. It's like I'm
Yeah.
just gonna do it myself. I'm gonna do it myself. I like the energy feel of the sideline because then you get a feel for it, like
Mm-hmm.
aggressive here or can I do this here? So that's why I went right back to the field. The only time I want to go to the box if it's raining, like, hey, I'll go to the box now. You guys go
Yeah.
down
Right.
there.
I
If I
have noticed,
inside.
like, I'm calmer up there. I'm in more of a zone up
Yep.
there because like I can just lay my stuff out, and I'm all focused in on the game and just the X's and O's, the scheme
Yeah.
part of it. Where on the sideline, you do get the emotional, you do get the volume and all that. And so there's been times I've called plays and I'm like, man, I screwed that one up, like I
Yep.
really didn't want to do that, or I did, but there's also good in that where you do feel the emotion. You go, screw it, we're all out blitzing here. Let's get after them, or whatever it is. So there's definitely, there's definitely pros and cons to it. Like you were saying, so I'm on the headset and I give the play calls to Coach Clark and another assistant down the sidelines. They have their headsets on.
Yeah.
And they signal everything in, and I'll help like with secondary signal or
Yeah.
whatever, so they get it faster, but they can look at either guy. But then there's times like teams go no huddle, if they're going fast, no huddle, then I can only think fast enough. And we almost sometimes in the middle of games, you just have to not even look at the other coaches, just look at me because I'm getting it in as fast as I can.
Right.
And so you just have to go with me on that one. If the game slows down, then you can go with him because it's, from me to him, then he signals
Yeah.
it. So most of the time it's through the assistants that they get the calls in for me. But there are times where it's just going fast. They're trying to catch us off guard. So now it's just look at me
Right.
and get signals for me immediately.
That's what I did with OC was first year I was still running Hogan stuff because he left the day of. We were running the pro style stuff. So it was like we could signal to the quarterback, but we were huddled up.
Yeah.
But he was the head coach at Eastern at the time was Dino Baber. So all the rage was that 12-second snap it. New head
Mm-hmm.
coach Charleston that took over when Hogan left said, "Hey Steve, you need to snap the ball every 12 seconds." And I'm like, "What?" So the
Yeah.
signals had to could be quick. There was no time to get it to anybody else. So that's why I just said I'm going to do it myself. So we're
Yeah.
just going and
Remember we were doing that too. We had the stopwatch at practice.
yep,
I mean, we're just 12 seconds. We got, yeah. Hey, yeah. And it's helped. I mean, that's kind of a signature a signature for us of doing no huddle and going fast. But we can slow it down too, and
yeah, yeah. Because I helped out spring ball with Babers. That was when you were allowed to, so I could go help spring ball. And I always tell the story. It was like 50, 55 degrees maybe. So, you're either in shorts and like a long sleeve or short, whatever. We're like, to us, that's awesome. 55-degree weather is awesome.
right.
He's in a parka and a snow hat because he's like, I'm from like the South. Like,
Yeah.
this is terrible. And so he has a stopwatch. He's the guy watching it. And he had to take his gloves off because they were too big to like hit the thing because he was cold. And he's like, well, took it off. He's trying to hit the button. And I remember we were snapping it like every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And it happened like 4 times in a row and he threw a fit. He's
Yeah.
like, it's got to be 10 to 12, 10 to 12. Jimmy G was there. Like they're yelling at him, snap the ball quicker. Um, and I'm like, wow. And so then I go to practice and I'm like, we can't do this. Like, this
Right.
is way too fast for our Charleston kids. This is
Yeah.
way too fast for these Charleston.
Eastern was struggling with it. How are we going to do it?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, we just ran pro style forever with Halsey. Then we ran pro style with Hogan. Nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah.
Now we can't just do it the next year. Like, it's not going to happen with
Yeah.
our kids. They're too used to this. They're too used to this. I was also told though to have 8 run plays, 50 formations, and all these pass plays. And I was like, no, this is. And at the time, you're young. So you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm signaling it, and I'm like sweating. I'm like, why am I sweating? Oh, because of all these signals, and I got to
Yeah.
have 50 formations. I got to have shifts. I got to have. And so sometimes you learn how to not do things in order to learn how to do things.
Sure.
And I'm not afraid
Absolutely.
to tell people that. My time as an OC, I learned what not to do because I was told what to do.
Yeah.
And so I learned way more.
Sometimes it's better with the simplicity. Like when we were winning, when we went on that five in a row win
Yeah.
streak,
Yeah.
you can't help but get complacent and like this is the norm. And like what all I was doing, I kept adding scheme.
Mhm.
What's new each spring, each glazier clinic, whatever I went to, I was like, okay, what's the new thing this year that I need to be doing to stay on top of everybody, and I kept adding and
Yeah.
adding and adding. And then I was like, well, shit, I haven't taken anything out.
Yeah.
You can't put all this in. Like,
Right.
so then you start realizing, like, damn, we were playing slow that year when we got beat. Like we were hesitating and playing slow. It was like I had too much scheme and not enough effort and just
Mhm.
flying to the ball. And so then you're learning as you go and like, well, let me dummy this down a little bit. Let me back off. And so now I'm real careful about, like we were talking about the 3-3-4-2. I don't put in whichever one we major in, I'm
Yeah.
putting in the whole thing.
Right.
And then the minor, I don't put the whole package in. I'm gonna put the base stuff in and then stop there. Where
Right.
I was trying to put every single package that we had in for both, and it was too much. And so we were average. We were average at things. We just weren't as good. And our other things started dropping. Our effort, our technique, because we're just too much scheme. So then you learn. You live and learn, and you're always constantly trying to grow and learn.
This will be the last thing. So I've had you on for a long time. So I just want to ask this question. It's real simple. Um, you might know Nick Davis. He was at Charleston.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
And we know everybody from Charleston. We just know everybody. When you live
Yeah.
there, you find out you know everybody.
Yeah.
I remember talking to him when he was at Rose-Hulman, and he said one thing he started to learn as a DC was what does the offenses do? And he realized, oh, they out formation us and they keep running the same things over and over, but they're doing it differently. So what he started to do when he came up with that speed defense was, what if I out formation the offense sometimes? What if I called the same thing 6 times in a row, but I put them in different spots all the time? Have you
Yeah.
started to see that over the years? Maybe like I can be simple, but I could have a tag like offensives do and just move kids. So now it looks completely different. They could come out in their 2x2 3 times in a row. I
Yeah.
can call this coverage those same exact times, but I'm moving people around.
Yeah.
Have you seen that
Yeah.
over the years?
Um, at the high school level, not as much. Like defensively,
Yeah.
guys don't move them around like that. Um, I do a little bit of that, but it's more for me. It's more show you the same too high shell,
Mhm.
and so you think we're in quarters or cover two the whole time, and we're rolling into cover one, we're rolling into to some type of three roll. We're bringing pressure. We are in quarters. Your 3x1s. We never have one look. So I'm more of I'm going to try to show you the same picture every time pre-snap.
Right.
Then post-snap, you're getting all kinds of different looks, and it kind of depends on who you're playing. How complicated are they, or how spread are they? The more spread you are, and the more pass. Like when your playbook's wide open, I
Mhm.
can be wide open with you.
Right.
And but if you're a heavy run team, well, then all that secondary roll and stuff doesn't even matter because you're not even passing. You're not even looking to pass. You're just
Right.
looking for the extra run fitter and all that.
Right.
So each week it kind of depends. But yeah, Coach Davis, man, he's been a good friend,
Yeah.
and following him through Rose-Hulman and now Ottawa. He actually offered Henry
Yeah.
scholarship to go out there, and so we've been talking, and we always stay in good communication. But yeah, he does a phenomenal job defensively, and I've learned some of his stuff when he was at Rose-Hulman when I went and visited. And he does a great job of keeping it simple.
Mhm.
Um, like, I mean, he's dealing with some smart kids now,
Oh
Rose-Hulman,
yeah.
I mean, all those engineers and stuff, but the way his verbiage is there, still gets you in that football mindset. Like here's an A word, here's a B word, here's a C word. This is the gap. He's telling
Yeah.
you what gap you're going to or whatever. And he's got them all in little family packages of verbiage. And so he does a great job with that. And that's why his defenses over the years, they play fast too. And so you try to take that. Like Derek presents a lot of complication, but with formations, but bottom line is he's running 4 run plays. You know what I mean? Like there's a million formations and 4 run plays. We do kind of the same thing defensively. We show you one formation, we show you cover 4, but we really have a lot in the package, and it just kind of depends on the week what all we're going to do. That's what's fun about like summer. I mean, we put the whole thing in,
Yeah.
and our technique isn't great. The fundamentals aren't great, but we're putting in the whole offensive and defensive package. We're coaching them hard on the fly during the 7-on-7s and all that. And then once we get towards the end of the summer and into doubles and all that, then we really start really focusing in on the technique and the fundamentals of each play. But at the beginning, it's throw the whole package in and see what you can contain. See what you can keep. And but yeah, then we break it down more as we go.
Right. Well, Coach, I appreciate all the time, and I had to say this. Congrats to your son because I see you post the stuff what he's done, and I'm like, that's awesome. All the stuff
Yeah,
you accomplished, that's amazing. So, congrats to you and your son on that. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's been it was a fun year, man. You had to try to coach hard, but also take a step back and try to have a couple dad moments where you get to watch your kid.
Right.
Man, when we're on offense, I don't get to see. I'm really not watching much. I'm on the sideline. I'm on the
Yeah.
huddle cam, trying to make adjustments. I'm watching stuff, and you know how fast our offense goes.
Yeah.
So I got 2 minutes, man. I got 2 minutes to quickly look, and then I look up, oh, we scored, or it's a turnover, whatever. But whatever it is, it's happening fast, and so I got
Yeah.
to quickly look through, make a quick adjustment, and get going
Yeah.
again. And so I miss a ton of our offense, but this year, luckily, we were pretty damn good defensively.
Right.
So we get a 3 and out, and I'm like, there's not really a whole lot I need to change. And so I was able to like just stand there and just watch and catch some of his plays and catch him playing offensively. But it was a special year. Those kids were a great senior class. Obviously, it was his close friend group that
Mhm.
me and Coach Nelson had coached for. I started with him kind of like 6th, 7th grade, and Nelly had been with them even longer. And so you talk about playing fast now. Like this group, it wasn't 4 years; they had 6 years of this stuff, and
Right.
so we were able to add more this year,
Yeah.
like just to keep them entertained and like keep their brains moving and progressing. But yeah, it was a great group. He had a hell of a year. It's fun to watch, fun to be a dad
Mhm.
and a coach at the same time, and a special year I'll never forget. That's for sure.
Yeah. I like I said, I keep up with every Central Illinois team, and I keep up with you guys, and I kept seeing that. I'm like, that's awesome because I didn't know your son. What for some reason I was like, oh, he has a son on the team. That's
Yeah,
awesome. And
yeah,
then seeing that, and then you posted, I got voted like a player of the year, or I can't remember
yeah.
what you posted. I'm like, that's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
like a conference player of the year they do like a player of the year down here every year. And
Yeah, yeah,
so, yeah, he won that. But
yeah. That's awesome. Congrats on that. That's awesome.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but Coach, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Title Town down there. We'll keep going.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. Always good to talk to you. I'm sure I'll see you either this spring or this summer for sure. So
Oh, yep, yep.